Yeah, my name's Jamel. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. How's it going today?
It's going good. How are you? What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. First of all, I just want to say I love the show. I've been listening since 2018. Michael Brooks was like a huge influence on my politics and over the past few years. I mean, may he rest in peace. I just I've loved his coverage on everything from the way he talks about human rights around the globe, from Palestine to Brazil and Venezuela and everything. So it's just a pleasure to finally speak with you. I haven't had time to really call in because I'm constantly, working, and capitalism keeps us moving.
I hear you. I hear you. Thanks for the kind words about Michael, though. So let's get to what you want to talk about. What's on your mind?
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I've wanted to talk about in the past. I guess the most important thing right now for me would be to talk about how influential these types of shows are to bring people that are being red pilled, in their 20s, like a lot of young men, such as I was, back in my early 20s. I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, and I was in college, so people recommended that, and they were like, "Oh, he talks to scientists and he talks to philosophers, and it's really cool. You should dig it. He'll have something that you really like if you just take a look through his past episodes." And yeah, I found some that were interesting to me. He had he even had Abby Martin on, who I really always enjoyed listening to regarding her coverage of Palestine. So I saw that he had these people on there, but then I saw he had right wingers on there. This was about 2016, so I was 23, 24. And I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan. And then I see Ben Shapiro on there. I see Dave Rubin, Rafe Dubin or whatever. What's the other guy? Oh yeah, Sam Harris. I almost forgot about him. So I started seeing the IDW forming.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and Jordan Peterson. Yeah, and I start seeing all these different people come together and the IDW forming, and I kind of fell into that little rabbit hole. And it's strange because I'm Palestinian. I grew up in America post 9/11. I've seen what racism does and what Islamophobia does in this country firsthand. I was in third grade when 9/11 happened. My mom pulled me out of school immediately. My brother shared the name of one of the people who were alleged terrorists, and she was like, my dad was like, "You're going to blame Muslims. This is what they did with the Oklahoma City bombing. They were incorrectly reported on the first day that it happened that it was a Muslim terrorist when it wasn't." And so he knew what was happening when that happened, 9/11 happened. And they pulled me out of school. My brother's out of school, and months later, just a few months later, I think it was November or December, some white supremacist ran his car into the front of our mosque. I don't know what the thing is with right wingers and running cars over people, but I think that's where the "don't tread on me" thing comes from. They want to tread on everyone else.
They love their vehicles. They love God forbid
they do.
And God forbid you're a bicyclist and you get in, you're in a bike lane next to one of them or something, or you're trying to cross an intersection. Be careful.
And not to get on too much of a tangent, caller, here, but I think also in one of the most pernicious aspects of car culture is that idea of almost this domination of pesky protesters. We saw it in Charlottesville, we've seen it in many other different areas with demonstrations, and not only that, with a legislative backpinning to it, with many state legislatures trying to loosen the criminal liability of people who hit protesters.
Oh, definitely. No, I mean, I've seen that firsthand when the Black Lives Matter protests happened, and I'm sorry, I'm going on another tangent here, but when the Black Lives Matter protests happened, I was doing customer service calls, and I was on the phone with a guy who was threatening to run over these Black Lives Matter protesters while he was calling his insurance company on a recorded line.
That's cool.
He had of course, it was a Florida man. It was a Florida man. Yeah, I was shook from that. I had to talk to my supervisor. I had to report it. I was so shook by it.
Yeah, did you guys drop him from it? Did you
I don't know what they ended up doing. I just reported it because I know the call to record it. I was like, you should really take a look at this. This is dangerous to have this guy out here, being insured when he's making threats like this on a recorded line with his car insurance company. It was
wild.
Just incredible.
That's wild.
So I grew up on the left because my dad was listening to Noam Chomsky as a kid. And I saw what 9/11 did. I went to anti-war protests and everything. My mantra growing up was, if you want to go to war, vote Republican. That's basically what I grew up with. And slowly, though, in my college years, I became kind of apathetic towards voting. I've seen, how Obama, I really had a lot of hope for Obama. I wasn't able to vote for him in 2008 because I wasn't of age yet, but I really had a lot of hope for him. And then that was dashed. There was a financial crisis and everything, and he just kind of succumbed to the capitalist powers and did what he did, and then increased drone strikes and did all that kind of stuff. And so I became really apathetic towards politics. And then by the time 2016 came, I'm in my, early mid-20s. And someone recommends Joe Rogan, and next thing you know, I'm falling into this IDW rabbit hole, talking to, telling my friends and coworkers, like, have you heard about Bill C-16? This is ridiculous, blah, 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 parroting these points that Jordan Peterson's making. And until one of my friends, was like, I live in Canada, and like, this is not a real thing. Like, he's just really just trying to cause, trying to whip up some anti-trans hate and also Red Scare, neo-Red Scare type of hysteria throughout the country. And so I looked into it more. I started looking up critiques of him. That's when I found Michael Brooks. This is like 2018, after about 2 years of listening to Rogan and falling into that rabbit hole. And Michael Brooks' critiques were just so great, and his comedy was so compelling, and his mantra of, be kind to individuals, be ruthless towards systems, really inspired me, because that's something that my friends were nice to me when they explained this. Like, they didn't say like, oh, you're transphobic and you shouldn't be saying this and unfriend you, block me, I'm gonna block you or whatever. Like, they just told me what the case was, provided me the information, provided me more information on the scientific validity of trans people existing, and how it's not like some mental disorder like the right wing was trying to convey, and still is. And so people being nice to me and actually providing that information, nudging me kindly towards the right direction, allowed me to actually like go and maybe I am wrong, or they planted that seed of doubt in me that I could find the information that I needed to liberate myself from that that basically propaganda funnel that we have in this country. So our media is incredibly dangerous, and I just wanted to say, the only ways to really combat it is by, organizing left-wing media that's just as intellectual. The right wing is not intellectual at all, but they claim themselves to be accredited. Like Jordan Peterson will go on talking about politics and economics when he's really just a psychiatrist, and he's not accredited in any of those fields. And that's what the right wing wants to do, is like build up this posture of authority when they really have no authority on the subjects they're speaking on. And so you guys having guests on that are actually in the fields that they're discussing, that's what really made me rest here with my politics and be like, okay, this is the right way. Is the left has got it right. I don't know what made me fall down that rabbit hole. It took me a long time to kind of realize what happened after listening to the show, and it's just an interesting anecdote of how left-wing media can combat these types of right-wing media. Even though the right-wing media is all pervasive and has so much money and funding, they just don't have the common sense to even, they're not good at hiding their true agenda. And so people can see through it easily, and most people, I don't think, agree with the right in most topics. It's just, they get funneled to, they just get propagandized so much because our media is so inept at providing accurate information to people. And so just want to thank you guys for the show and for your time and everything. And
this is a great call. You called it on the perfect day, because I personally, at least for me, because I personally love de-radicalization stories. I think they're fascinating to listen to, and also extremely helpful for both the people you're talking to. So we could maybe take a look at what exactly is working, what exactly is reaching people. Not like our messaging does, what we believe doesn't change, but maybe how we get those messages across could be like you mentioned, with Jordan Peterson focusing on an issue that was being completely ignored by anyone on the other side, and then also people listening know that like this happens, and it happens quite frequently, quite often, that people fall down these rabbit holes without even realizing it.
It can happen to anyone, really.
Yeah, and that's just, especially if it's someone, it especially affects, young men. Because they're, they're just coming into adulthood. Maybe they weren't paying attention to politics, period. And this is the first piece of media that
I was listening to Jimmy Dore, a lot of Jimmy Dore too at that time, Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore, because he had him on there during that time, like 2016 or something like that, 2017 maybe. I didn't know where to get my political information from that would be good. I mean, I've always listened to like Al Jazeera and stuff like that, and Democracy Now! Even while I was listening to Joe Rogan, and that's why actually even with Jordan Peterson, before anyone even told me anything about him, I stopped listening to him because there was this lecture he had. I was listening to his lectures on the Bible on his podcast. He had these Bible lectures, and I thought they were interesting. I'm interested in religion. I'm not religious, but I'm interested in it. And I thought, he had some interesting things to say at the time until he went on to read this letter before his lecture that he received from a fan. And this is when I realized he was trying to start a cult. And this is before anyone planted any seeds of doubt in me. I stopped listening to him specifically because I knew he was trying to start a cult. And that was because he read this letter from a fan who had went to South America to do ayahuasca. And the fan said that, he spoke to the Divine Mother, and the Divine Mother told him that Jordan Peterson is actually the incarnation of male vitality to rejuvenate the presence of the masculinity on the planet. And so I was like, wow, this guy, how would he consciously read something like this to an audience of his fans and not be trying to prop himself up as some type of cult figure or cult leader or God? I'm always suspect of anyone who brings too much religion into any sort of media that's supposed to be for a mainstream audience. It always comes across very suspect to me. It's one thing to just offhandedly mention God or Jesus Christ or whatever, but to really when you start pulling out the Bible verses and the Psalms and stuff, then it's like, this is the inappropriate medium for this. This is for a show explicitly for that audience. It always comes, and you're not doing that. It always comes across as propagandizing to me. And this is coming from someone who grew up going to Catholic school. So great call. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Definitely call in again. A lot to talk about. You said you wanted to bring up, but we only got time really for one issue per person on these calls. So take care. Have a great day. I totally understand, and I appreciate the time. You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Left is best.
I will say I did come across left is best, but I will say I did come across a poll. The New York Post actually is where I first saw this poll, but they have nothing to do with the poll. They were just reporting it. And it was very funny to me. The headline from the New York Post. This is a poll from Change Research, a Bay Area-based polling firm. They polled, younger millennials and then Gen Z women. 1,033 registered voters between the ages of 18 and 34. And apparently, and the question is, red flags in a partner. Do you consider each of the following behaviors or traits a green, beige, or red flag in a partner? And the vast majority, 76% of the women who responded to this survey, millennials and Gen Z, said that it's a red flag if if a partner identifies as a MAGA Republican. And then another 60% of women, red flag if they say all lives matter. And then this one is very funny to me. 55% say it's a red flag if their partner listens to Joe Rogan. Millennial women and Gen Z women not putting up with apparently the right wing. There's one unfortunate part of this poll where it's a turnoff apparently if their partner identifies as a communist, and that shows that the Cold War era is still that propaganda is still making it to the kids these days. But anyway, I thought that was a funny poll. So yeah, if you're someone who was formerly going down that rabbit hole and you stopped listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, you apparently are more attractive to young women, if that's your age range.